Hey, Trekkers, and welcome to Trek Tonight. We have a special episode tonight, part of a two-part series in which we are going to be talking about Star Trek Continues, the phenomenal web series that in many ways predates all of the new Trek that we're looking at right now on Paramount Plus. So let's get started. Hey there. How are you, Leo?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
Good. I'm doing very well, thank you. Well over my ailment, I believe.
That's good. Yeah, you I can tell you, your voice has got it's usual, deep timbre. So
thank you. So tonight we wanted to do something special because we here at Trek Tonight really are big fans of what Vic Mignogna and crew did with Star Trek Continues, and we bring it up every now and then. But we wanted to take a little bit of a deep dive and get into it and look and see what it was all about. And Vic was generous enough to sit down with us and chat. We have so much good stuff that we're going to do this as a two-parter, and we're going to get a little bit with Vic tonight and then a little bit next week. And we're also going to sit down and talk about, Leo and I each picked an episode that we really love, and we're going to sit and talk about that as well. Hey, look who it is. It is our good buddy. Well, there he is. Jacobson says hi. He says he's looking forward to this one. That's great.
Good. No pressure. Great. No pressure.
Yeah.
All right. So
yeah,
we picked two episodes out of their run. Why don't we start with yours?
Okay.
First.
Yeah. I picked, and of course, there's so many good ones, but and it was a very impressive 11 episode run.
Yes.
I made a mistake in the promo. I said 13, and I got that in my head canon from chatting with Vic. But no, it was 11 episodes, and I picked Come Not Between the Dragons, which I really enjoyed. I thought it had a lot of classic TOS feel to it, but it featured a lot of the characters, especially the counselor, who really ends up becoming quite kick-ass later on in the episode. And I enjoyed especially the whole idea that you had this alien, which I thought the costume, the build for the alien was fantastic. It was really high quality, and Vic does talk a little bit about that in our interview, about who designed that and built that. But it was just a really fun episode. You got to see the characters, take on this. You have this alien that shows up, clearly running away from something, and then the ship starts getting attacked. And the Enterprise is attacked, and with these waves of energy that hits the ship, it starts to affect the crew, and the crew starts to get very angry, and they all start to focus on punishing, if you will, this alien that is hiding out in the ship. And you have one character who initially, and it was played by, I'm trying to remember now, Gigi. Oh, geez, yeah, exactly. Did a wonderful job.
Yeah, of Farscape fame for those fans of that show, which I am one of them. Great show, not related to Star Trek, but please check it out while you're waiting for new Star Trek.
Exactly, why not?
Yes.
Well, you're waiting for new Trek to arrive. But at any rate, she ends up being the first person to communicate with this alien.
Yes.
That's the universal translator. Initially, Captain Kirk says, you seem to be who it's interested in talking to, so you go ahead, rather than Spock or Kirk doing it. And she bonds with it. And then as a result of that, she ends up becoming its protector. Mm-hmm. Where you have people all over the ship running around trying to track it down, trying to get it, to do something negative to it. And she ends up being its protector. And then, of course, in the end, they come up with this gizmo that is in sickbay that helps block the effect of this energy.
Yes.
And she and the counselor end up distributing them to members of the crew as fast as they can. And then this negative energy, stops affecting them. And then you find out sort of in a classic TOS way that the other ship or attacker that's trying to get this alien is actually its father.
Yes.
And I just thought it was a really well crafted episode. Again, one of the things about Star Trek Continues is just the level of detail towards the way it's shot, the lighting, the sets, absolutely. The costumes. And the other thing that's fantastic is that it has a regular cast that reappears every episode.
Yeah. Which some Star Trek, and understandably, these things are done, they're done sort of, have a glass, have a little sorry and brandy there.
Yeah, there you go.
While what people can do in terms of Star Trek fan films is now very limited. These were made earlier on.
Right.
But, the problem is trying to get a regular group of people to come and do this, because it would take them, they might do like 3 episodes a year in the beginning. Because there's, it was scheduling and getting people to come in, the sets, everything, everybody's sort of doing it for love of this. And it shows up in every frame. But one of the things, and we discussed this in the interview, is not only is it feel like a classic episode, but they do give some of their, I want to call them semi-regulars, but not like Kirk, Spock, McCoy, who are usually the focus of most of the original episodes. In this one, it's this junior officer played by Gigi Edgley, who she's a science officer, I believe, because she's got a blue tunic on.
Right.
And she becomes the one who communicates with this alien, and it sort of looks like a bug. Like this could have easily been like a Devil in the Dark. Like it has influences, which is not to say they ripped it off, but it just feels in that vein.
Feels very Trek. And the other thing that I loved about it is that depending on its emotion and what it's trying to get across, it has eyes that light up and glow.
Right.
And those eyes change color depending on what's going on. It's just a beautiful costume, prop / costume. Really neat.
One of the things I liked was because that character, this junior officer, gets to be the focal point between this alien and the father, and sort of the link between the crew and this alien, in a way that I imagine probably Mr. Spock would have done it if this was on network TV, because that's the way these things work, unless they bring on a guest of the week who is an expert in this sort of alien thing, and there's oh my God, Mr. Spock, but I like the fact that she got her stage time, and they found something to do with it. She was also at the beginning of the episode, she's feeling like a little like her friends are trying to come on, let's have some drinks, and she's like, I'm kind of tired, I don't know, and it sort of also helps her become more connected with the people on the ship.
Right.
But the idea of like the crew sort of being not possessed per se, but having their emotions ramped up felt like a very, TOS thing where like
Sure. Well, and there's fisticuffs all over the ship.
Yeah, there's a lot of good brawls going on the Enterprise that day.
I think if I remember correctly, Kirk takes a swing at Sulu, doesn't he?
I think he does. There's a lot of blows are traded, and they like in the great tradition of Star Trek, they were like, well, let's move past this. Let's if we report each other, we'll both be in the brig, as Mr. Spock once said.
Right.
So, and also it reflects maybe not a healthy relationship between a parent and child, which is something that could be explored. And if I'm remembering the episode correctly, she had her own issues, which made her the ideal person to sort of cope with this. And I may be wrong. I haven't watched this.
Yeah, that I don't know. I know Vic tells a story about the actress.
Yeah.
But hey, look, Joe Townsend drops in. My favorite episode of Star Trek Continues is Fairest of Them All and To Boldly Go.
Both good. Both solid episodes.
Very solid episodes.
So, again, the best thing I could say about any episode of the highest praise of any sort of Star Trek fan film is it feels like Star Trek. And this very much feels like Star Trek. And it is, sort of a bottle episode. It all takes place on the ship. We get some exterior shots, but, and this is something I'll address on the episode I covered, is Star Trek Star Trek Continues both honors the legacy of Star Trek in terms of the writing and the stories and the characters, but also the Star Trek's tradition of making making a lot out of very little. There are stories. I remember that especially as the seasons went on and their budgets kept dropping, is the art department would go into the dumpsters on the studio and find bits of wood and stuff that were thrown away by other shows, take them out, paint them, and make them into alien art, which is hanging on the wall. They were very good at making nothing look like something.
Right.
And I think this show, obviously, a lot of work and care and probably money went into the build for the alien. Although it also, in the grand Star Trek tradition, we never quite see it like in full light. It's always like sort of in the corners, a bit in shadow, which I think is a solid dramatic move, because we can't, sometimes the monster, when you see the monster in light, you're like, oh, okay, it's a bug.
Right.
Then you're like, oh, all right. But if it also kept the mystery of this character or this figure alive. So
yeah, very much so. Do you want to get into your episode, or do we want to?
Let's get into my episode, and then we'll, I know some of you are here to watch the Vic interview, but you're gonna have to wait and listen to us natter on for a little bit more.
Yeah, it's like in City on the Edge of Forever. You gotta pay for your supper, right?
Exactly. So I picked What Ships Are For, which was the story was written by Vic, James Kerwin, and Kipley Brown. And Kipley Now Kipley Brown, you will also know, is playing Lieutenant Smith, the navigator on the Enterprise, who is the character, the blonde woman who shows up in the Where No Man Has Gone Before, the original episode, when Gary Mitchell is both steering the ship and reaching back to hold the hand of this very pretty blonde, and that was Lieutenant Smith. It was Lieutenant Smith, or I don't know whether she was a lieutenant then, but it's the same character, and they brought her back. So it's definitely a family affair. This came out on July 30th of 2017. Just to go over, it has two storied guest stars. We have John Delancey, as everybody knows as Q, as playing Galisti, and Anne Lockhart is Thalias, his wife, who you may know as Lieutenant Schieber from the original Battlestar Galactica. Ooh, that is some sci-fi royalty.
And it certainly is.
So the let me look at my notes to see if I can get the name of everything. The Kalani, or the the aliens on this. It's an asteroid with an atmosphere, which is an unusual thing.
Right.
And they have called for assistance, and the Enterprise is showing up, and a couple other ships were in the area, but they've had some trouble, as we find out at the beginning. And then so the Enterprise is sent in, and they're because apparently they're having a medical crisis on this asteroid, and we see this admiral speak to them all, who's wearing this white suit with with the caduceus on it.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, "What's that weird uniform?" And of course, you can never catch me in one of those. And it's a bit of a nod to the costumes from the motion picture. So
yes,
this little Easter egg. The basic thrust of this planet is having a sort of a plague of some sort, but they can't figure it out. And when they beam down, Kirk, Spock, McCoy beam down, everything's in black and white. It's the reverse, Wizard of Oz. And apparently the radiation from the sun is affecting people's cones. And they go and they meet the council, and, John Delancey is very gracious and, please come. And this is not how we wanted to enter galactic society, with our hands out. But, we had no choice. And everybody's super nice and everybody's charming, and they bring him back to this castle. Again, like a static shot of the castle. I'm not sure where they got that image, but
it was beautiful. It was really beautiful. Again, very classic TOS.
Very classic, very TOS. Stock. I don't want to say a stock shot seems dismissive, but I think that is part of Star Trek's charm, is using very little, making it into something. So they're discussing what are they going to do, and the sort of adopted daughter of the two council members of Galisti and Thalius, who was Sakara, was this beautiful young woman played by Elizabeth Maxwell, who is a voice actress primarily and has numerous anime roles, including Attack on Titan, RWBY, Black Clover, and My Hero Academia. So
there you go.
That is her. I'll stop talking. I'll take a breath. Yes.
My daughter, who is a huge fan of Academia, would probably be thrilled to know that. I'll have to let her know that.
She plays one of the teachers, the adult rated teacher, the one with the whip, who can control men with her pheromones. So understand. So typecasting.
I haven't seen it, so
anyway. So she has these things on her arm. She has these legions, and they were like, well, of course, like there's only so much I can do on the planet, and they're kind of like, well, they're very like antsy about leaving, and he said, listen, if I bring her up there, then I can find out what's going on, because they're like, it's not a virus. And it's not. They like list all the things it's not, so they can't figure it out. They don't know the source.
It's not monkeypox.
It's not monkeypox. It's not Omicron. We don't know.
Yeah.
And they agree. They reluctantly agree. And Spock says, "I'm going to stay here, and I'm going to do some more scans and talk to these guys and find out what's going on." So they go back up, and Kirk warns him, "He's like, listen, when you come up, things might look a little strange to you, because, like, they're also like." They're unaware that they're living in a black and white world, or they're aware, but they're not aware that there's color is a thing. So they beam up, and at first she's like, "Oh, everything." He's like, "Are you all right?" So everything's fine. And then she's going at Scotty, and like the red on his tunic starts to spread out and everything, and she starts like flipping out.
Right.
And Kirk is like, "I promise you'll be safe. I know this is very distressing and all." And also we see that she has green skin and purple hair. Bum, bum, bum. So she calms down, and very much like she's very much in this moment the damsel in distress, and Kirk, who flirts with her immediately as Kirk, so, but again, this is, I feel like we're taking off a lot of these classic Star Trek tropes And I don't mean
Oh
that
yeah.
in a dismissive way, but in a way that makes it feel like, yeah, this is Star Trek.
Right.
So they eventually discover that there's the radiation that's coming from the sun is causing this outbreak, and it's also what's causing the 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 black and white vision. The old, so but she's like she's like now that she's used to color, she's like, oh my god, this is amazing! Blah, blah, blah. Look at it, so bright. I can't believe this. And they eventually just while they're up there, three like kind of shuttlecraft type ships are approaching the planet, and the asteroid guys have like a military satellite who was like locking their targeting on them, and they're like,
Yeah,
well,
and
guys
they're gonna blow them up. Yeah.
yeah. So, but the Enterprise disables it, and they're real pissed off about that, and they're going down. And John Dolan says, "Look, you don't understand. These people are savages. They try to come and steal our resources are stretched thin. We can't take any more. We can't feed any more mouths." Which again is beginning to feel like a very common theme. The way a lot of people are very fearful of immigrants these days.
Right.
Where you feel like, oh, this really, this was made 5 years ago, but certainly it's been a problem for much longer than that. But it very much still feels relevant today. So they, and eventually she really Kirk reveals to her, they're like, hey, I don't think you're from there. I think you're from there. She's like, oh, that's not true. My parents were killed by those savages. And she flips out. And, he's like, listen, we'll work this all out, in a way that I'm sure he doesn't quite have a plan for at this moment.
Right.
But, he's Kirk, so he's going to figure it out. So they go later on. She gets a tour of the ship. Chekhov is taking her on tour of the ship. And Chekhov is being very like, oh, well, hello, because she's gorgeous. She's this gorgeous woman. And Scotty is like, oh, Scotty, of course, notices.
Yeah, they're all fighting over.
They're all like, and Chekhov's like, I'm sure Mr. Scott is very, very busy. He doesn't have time to be giving tours. And he's like, I always have time for a pretty lassie. And they're like kind of like arguing over it. And then she picks up like this gizmo because they have the torpedo that they're going to load, which is going to spread the cure on the planet,
right?
The aerosol version. And she's like, if I destroy this, and they're like, that's the only one we have. We don't have any more of these torpedoes right now. And she's like terribly afraid that if they see her, they're going to reject her, which is a genuine concern. But it also is a real the disease is a real problem because a lot of people are getting this, and they eventually they talk her down. So they are, they eventually they're like, all right, we're gonna do this. And Kirk beams down. He's like, listen, you got to start treating these other aliens better because they're really not any different than you, and I don't think they're actually savages. And he's like, Delancey is this high. I call him a high inquisitor, but he's like this council member. This way, he's like, you're a vaunted, prime directive, and he's really giving the business to Kirk.
Right.
And Kirk's like, can I say one thing? And he gives this great captain speech about tolerance and acceptance and coming together and all this stuff. He's going to goes, are you done? Basically,
right, yeah.
And
which in many ways I thought was marvelous because
because it was so
Star Trek is riddled with these awe-inspiring speeches that changed the whole tone of the episode, and he just wasn't buying it.
Yeah, but he's like, "Are you done yet? Can we?
Yeah,
do it." And he's like, "Oh, we did it like 15 minutes ago," and then it starts affecting everybody. They go, "Oh, we can see in color," and he's amazed, and it's all this stuff, and then he looks at his wife, who is one of the other asteroid people, and he's like, "No," and he's freaking out, and they're like, well, you need to. There's this other step that needs to be taken, and Kirk's like, yeah, we're not going to do that. We cured you guys, but it was to continue to shield themselves against the radiation.
Right.
As well, these other guys know how to do that, so maybe you want to talk to them. And he's like, well, why would they help us? And he says, and it's very much in the vein of for somebody who's like, if you are somebody who mistreats a group of people, you can only imagine that they want to mistreat you in the same way,
Right.
rather than saying that they maybe just don't want to be mistreated. They just want to be given a seat at the table versus being, they don't want to be like, yeah, now we're going to make you our lackeys, ha ha ha.
Right.
And the outcome of this story is not determined. We don't know how they resolve their problems. It is left on a Star Trek hopeful note that they can work it out.
Right.
Although there's bound to be sort of things. There were so many Star Trek moments. Like Kirk is definitely like he's right on the make with Sakara. Sulu gets to both talk about his love of botany, which was mentioned in the Salt Vampire episode.
Yeah.
And he even mentions Gertrude, who we never got to see again. And then he gets a scene on the planet. He's like, Captain, look at this planet. It's amazing. And he's like, and it was very cool to see Sulu finally get to do some botany stuff, because he seemed so keen on the one episode that brought up. And it's nice that they knew there's like, oh, let's pluck that and wrap this into it.
It's in Shore Leave too.
It's on Shore Leave, yeah.
He's on the planet with McCoy in the very beginning,
yeah,
and he's doing a whole biological plant survey.
It's true, but it's not an aspect of his character we got to see explored a lot. But back then it was the holy trinity of Kirk, Spock, and McCoy.
Right.
And occasionally Scotty. The others.
Isn't that also what's the there's an episode with Gertrude.
Yes.
Which episode is that where he's in the botany lab with
Rand?
With Rand, yeah.
That's the Salt Vampire.
Oh, is it? Oh, all right. Oh, yeah. You're right. You're right.
And she's like, and she calls it by a male name. Says, no, it's a Gertrude. I can tell. She's like, no, it's a male. Which is sort of a little silly. And a press group seeking only equality and not revenge, an all too familiar theme, says Craig Lubin.
Yes.
Very true, but still, again, very much both wonderfully and sadly relevant today. It's wonderful that it's being addressed, but sad that it has to be. So, but
now Joe Townsell had a remark, and I didn't want to interrupt your stuff that you were saying about the episode, but Joe says, let's start a campaign to cast Vic Mignogna as the real Captain Kirk in future episodes of Strange New Worlds.
Let's not start a whole flame war now, Joe. I certainly we love Vic here, and I'm excited to see what this new actor will bring to the role when we see him again.
The funny part about that, and one of the reasons why I wanted to put it up, was because I had seen someone on the Star Trek Continues Facebook group, the official group, make that exact same remark, I think today.
I'm sure if there's not a petition started, I'm sure there will be one started. Just like they suggested that Chris Doohan play Scotty when when and if he appears on Stranger Worlds. That's a whole big kettle of SETI Alpha worms that I'm willing to open up at this time. We want to go down that wormhole. And not because somebody's going to fire phasers and it's cancel that photon torpedo order. Kind of get messy. But so overall this felt like a very classic Star Trek episode. Vic is the new captain of the Orville, a solution that makes nobody happy.
Yeah, exactly.
Except maybe Vic, who will be getting,
getting work. Yeah,
getting work and probably better money than he made from. I don't think they made anything from Star Trek. I think it was
no. That was part of the deal.
That was part of the deal. So this a social issue with a weird science fiction bent. The fact that it is kind of a bottle episode. We see a few exterior shots, but again, it's all on the ship. The black and white, which is probably, I'm going to guess, I'm not a video technician, but I imagine it's probably not terribly expensive to
Well, that's just a filter
a
on your
filter.
edit.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
know, it's like it's finding those frugal. And like I said, I'm not saying, I feel like I keep saying, like, people are like, oh, I'm not, but it's like that is the tradition of Star Trek until recently. Was we don't have a lot of money, so we're going to reuse stuff, and
Right.
you know, Gunsmoke isn't shooting this week. So they use their set and Spectre the Gun, and all this other, they made so much out of so little, and I think that Star Trek Continues honors that tradition.
Oh, I agree. I mean, what they accomplished to me is just phenomenal. The look and the sets and I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I think we talked a little bit about this with Vic, which we're going to get to very shortly. But we may have talked about it in the green room. I don't know. But basically what he did was what you and I wanted to do when we were in high school.
Yeah.
Except the only difference is he came up with new episodes. We just wanted to recreate the old ones. But I mean, who doesn't want, as a Star Trek fan, to throw on the tunic and all of a sudden get to play Star Trek for an hour? I mean, it's fantastic. And yet this was much more than playing. This was a quality product that really stands out amongst other fan projects across franchises. I mean, Star Wars, whatever, Star Trek, whatever. So very, very impressive.
Well, one of the things is also they got real actors.
Right.
I mean, a lot of fan films, and God bless you if you're doing it, living your best life, and
oh yeah,
they're fun, but a lot of people who do it aren't strictly actors, and you get your buddies, you'll be like, you want to be a Klingon? I'm like, oh, and it's not, they're not trained actors, and not only were the regular crew trained actors, but they got these like really amazing guests. They had John Delancey, they had June Lockwood, they had the actor who played the original Apollo came back to play Apollo again. That's amazing.
Yeah,
they got all these great actors, and and it's like Gigi Edgley, who is in a number of episodes. She's sci-fi royalty by virtue of her time on Farscape, and they just really, clearly, not, it was this was hi guys.
Star Trek Continues social media in the house.
Thank you.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you.
Good to see you. Excellent. I'm just feeling I'm just rambling. I'm just gushing. I'm gushing like a
That's Sherry, by the way. Sherry is the admin for the official Star Trek Continues Facebook group.
Yeah, here I am gushing like a first year cadet. But I listen. It's they took their time. They made a quality product, and for an old school Joe Tanzel is point well taken, Leo. But at least get Michelle Specht in current Trek. She makes my heart go pitter pat. I believe that is the actress who plays the counselor. If am I getting that right?
No,
no,
boy.
Tell me if I'm correct. But it is a quality product, and for an old school fan like
yes, you're right.
It's a joy to watch because it's like the love is there for it. It's not
and that's the thing. I mean, we talk about, and when it drops, we're going to do a series on Lower Decks.
Yes.
And Leo and I have always said that Lower Decks is a love letter to Star Trek.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's Star Trek across the board. This was totally a love letter to the original series. And yet then there were little additions, like you're talking about the counselor.
Yeah.
What a cool idea to say, okay, this counselor thing happens in Next Generation.
Yeah.
But maybe there was a test pilot case back in TOS, and let's see what that looked like, and that's what they did. They created this brand new character, and God love her. I mean, she had to come in to this show with all these characters,
Yeah.
and create a role that was completely new
Yeah.
and stood up against all these other characters, and she did a phenomenal job.
Absolutely. And also to create an original character, because it's very, I'm sure it's tempting. Counselor McKenna. Yes,
Yes.
she is. She is lovely as they come. Um, she has to create a whole new character, and there's a real impulse to sort of default to the things you know. She's not like Troy. She's a different person.
Right.
She has different background and different vibe. But it does make sense to have a counselor where, being in a locked.
I'm going to assume she's human.
I believe so. I don't think
that's what I've always assumed.
Well, her last name is McKenna. I mean,
right.
She could possibly have some alien heritage, but I doubt. There was nothing in the shows that I watched.
No.
That.
And I think with McKenna, that probably puts that idea to rest.
In the red hair. So yeah. She's terrific. She's very charming, and she does add. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. We're getting it from memory.
We're getting it from the source.
From the source.
Yeah.
She brought a bit of levity, which is not Star Trek always had like those little notes of humor, which is a thing that keeps it like it didn't become a humor show. I mean, there are humorous episodes, Trouble with Tribbles being maybe the most famous of those. But you need to have somebody who's there to be sort of break up the tension. In the,
I agree.
So, and I think she did an excellent job. And I'm excited to see what else she's up to acting.
Oh yeah, I would love to know more about what she's up to. We'll have to look into that. I would love at some point to get some of these people on the show.
Absolutely.
But speaking of which, I think we've made them wait long enough for the interview.
I think so.
All right. So here we go. This is our part 1 of our interview with Vic Mignogna. Hey, Trekkers, we are delighted today to have with us Vic Mignogna, the director, producer, creator of Star Trek Continues, to sit down and chat with us a little bit about, what he did, how he did it, just to spend some time with us. And we're thrilled to have you here. How you doing, Vic?
Well, I am delighted to join you guys. It's always a good day when you get to talk Trek with friends and people who get the passion that you share. So thanks for having me.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Thank you for being here, please.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna leap right in because I had some questions.
Hit me.
Yeah. You've probably been. I was always trying to think of what would be a question you haven't been asked, and I am sure there are none. But
the problem is that I can't think of a question that I haven't been asked until somebody asks it.
Yeah, right, exactly. But
somebody will ask me a question, I'll be like, "Wow, no one's ever asked me that before." But there have been a lot of questions. But anything you want to ask, I'm an open book.
Great. This is sort of a basic one to get us started. Had you been able to do, because of budget or anything that you wanted to do, how many episodes would you have made?
I tell people this often. I've been in the Star Trek fan community and been involved in some way, shape, or form with fan films for a while.
Mm-hmm.
And if I know anything, I know 2 things. I know the sun came up this morning, and I know Star Trek fans are very particular.
They are.
They're very opinionated about what they think is good and what is not. So when I wanted to make one episode that best demonstrated my love and my nostalgic memory of the original series, I had no illusions that it would be well received.
Mm-hmm.
I just made it because I wanted to express my love for Bill and Leonard and the original series cast and crew. Right. So I never intended at the beginning to make more than one episode.
Okay.
I thought if I'm only going to make one, let's make a sequel to an original series episode that can springboard off of something that was left rather open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
And so we wrote the Pilgrim of Eternity script based on Apollo. And we made it, did the best we could with it, not knowing how it would be received. And it wasn't until after it was received very well that I started thinking, maybe we could do some more. Maybe we could make more.
Right.
And very soon after, when we were probably 3 or 4 episodes in, I started conceptualizing in my mind, how many could we possibly do?
Right.
Because there are a lot of variables, the least of which is money. The biggest one, in my mind, is attrition.
Yes. Yes. Right.
Every fan production I've ever been a part of cannot keep the crew together.
Right.
You don't believe me? Go watch New Voyages. Go watch Farragut. Go watch any fan production that has more than 2 or 3 episodes, and you see new characters in the same roles. 3 Sulus, 4 Chekhovs,
right.
2 security officers, new guy here, new face there. And it's not a bad thing. It's just a reality. This is not, and I want to stress this,
right.
This is not an insult.
Oh, yeah.
It's right. Reality. And the reality is when people donate their time and their effort and their money and their schedules away from work and family, they're happy to do it once.
Right.
Right.
And if you're lucky, twice.
Yeah.
Right.
But after that, they're like, you know what? I did it. Been there, done that, played Star Trek. I did it. Check that box, move on.
Right.
I knew that going in. So from the very beginning, I thought to myself, how long am I going to be able to keep these awesome people together? And I am very, very, very humbled and grateful to tell you guys and all of your watchers, with the exception of maybe 2 or 3 people, honestly, we had no attrition. Everybody that was a part of Star Trek Continues from the very beginning loved being a part of it. We had such a great spirit on set. We all got along so well, and we made something we were proud of. That's a very big part of it.
Yeah.
That everybody was excited to come back every time we shot an episode. I wanted to make maybe 13, maybe 15, what might equate to a modern day season of television.
That was my follow-up to this, but yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Back in the day, back when they made Star Trek, it was 25, 26 episodes in a season. Nobody does that anymore. Nobody.
Yeah.
They make 8 episodes a season, or maybe 11 or something. But I thought maybe we can get 15. And then I thought, maybe we could get 13. And what ended up happening, as you know, and I don't want to spend too much time on the negative, but as you know, the fan film guidelines were put in place, and CBS contacted me and they said, look, we know that you wanted to bring an end, a closure to the original series, and that's cool. And we really admire and applaud the quality of what you've done, Vic.
Which is fantastic.
Oh yeah.
They
I mean, how much more of a compliment could you get?
Exactly. They told me right out of the gate. You know what they told me? I'm going to tell you what they told me.
Okay.
Oh yeah.
Because I am so humbled by it. But this is what they said, and I'm quoting. Vic, there have been hundreds of Star Trek fan productions through the years. But none of them could ever be mistaken by the casual viewer as official Star Trek, except yours.
And that's fantastic and so true, because I don't know how many times I've had an episode of yours. We have a big television in our breakfast room. I don't know how many, and people, it's like Grand Central Station. People wander through that room all the time.
Right.
And I don't know how many times somebody in the family has walked in and said, Oh, cool. You're watching Star Trek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what they were talking about was the casual viewer.
Right.
Somebody who just casually knows what Star Trek looks like and what it was about back in the day. They don't know Shatner's actual face well enough. They haven't memorized Nimoy's face well enough to know, oh, what is this? This isn't the original. And when they told me that, I was like, well, you couldn't pay any higher compliment, because we did not do this for money. Anybody that was a part of STC can tell you, we didn't do anything for money. We did it for love and passion and to pay tribute to the original series. And I think the fans, they recognize that. I think you can watch one of our episodes and go, these people really love what they're doing. They're having a good time. They're really enjoying what they're doing. I can't put my finger on it, but they really feel like they care about what they're doing. Right. And you're not wrong. Yeah. So that was a long answer to your originally 15, maybe 13. And then when CBS contacted me and said, look, how many were you planning to do? I said, 13.
Right.
And they went, I don't think so, but get it done as fast as you can.
Right.
That's literally what they said. Wrap it up as quick as you can, because as you guys know, Discovery was on its way.
Yeah.
Right.
It was coming, and there was new Star Trek coming, and they didn't want anything getting in the way. And I get that. I totally get that. I respect that. Yeah. Our whole production team respected that. So we kicked into high gear. And the first 4 years of our production, we shot roughly 2.5 episodes a year, or 2 episodes a year. And our last year, we shot 4.
Wow.
Right.
Just to try to get as much done as we possibly could. Right. So even though I'm sad that we didn't get more done, because I did have a couple of stories that I think would have been great stories. Even though we didn't get to do that, I am incredibly grateful to CBS and even more to our production cast and crew.
Right.
Because everybody stuck it in there and went the extra mile, and we made 11 episodes that finished the original series of Star Trek. And I am so grateful for that. We were able to give the world something that will far outlive us.
It was terrific. I have a question. I have two. One, I'll ask the second one first. One of the things that I love about it was like all the attention to detail, the costumes, the sets, the music, everything feels like Star Trek. But one of the things that I think is maybe the most subtle, but the thing that would have broken it had you not done it so perfectly, was the camera work. The camera work, the way the shots were set up, everything, it felt like Star Trek in a way that so many of the other fan films didn't.
Yes.
And I have to know what filter you used, because
and I will tell
does
you,
not look like video.
No, in answer to your question, 98% of the credit to that goes to Matt Busey. Matt was our director of photography. Matt and I have been friends. We met on another fan film.
Oh, wow.
And we chatted many times about how much better it could be done.
Right.
So when I approached him about working with me on STC, there was no STC.
Right.
I had just rented a building, an empty warehouse in Georgia, and we were starting to build the sets. And Matt Busey, our DP, actually drew up the floor plans for the building of the sets. He was instrumental from the very beginning. And he and I sat down many times and looked through original series episodes and looked at camera angles and, more importantly, lighting.
Yes.
And Matt completely captured. And you know what? He just got better and better. Our first episode was okay. But by the time we got to our third episode, Matt had nailed the look. And I give him 98% of the credit for why it looks like it does, why it looks as close to the original as possible. And it's not by accident. Nothing that happened on Star Trek Continues happened by accident. Everything was a conscious choice. people like James Kerwin or William Smith or Jay Pennington or Larry Nemechek, or people that knew the series and had a personal passion for making it as close to what they remembered as possible. The fact that we had so many people that cared about it is what made that attention to detail. Because I would completely miss something because I'm focused here.
Yeah.
Right.
But Larry Nemechek wouldn't miss it. And if
Right.
Larry Nemechek was focused here, James Kerwin didn't miss it.
Yeah.
So we had so many people
That's
that
awesome.
were so passionate about it. And they would always bring stuff up. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're right. That's amazing. What a great idea. So we had so many people that were personally invested in making it good. And it wasn't for a paycheck. I can't stress that enough.
Right.
You can pay anybody to do anything.
Oh, sure.
But you cannot replace personal investment and a personal, heartfelt passion for what you're doing.
Well, I mean, it's
So-
very clearly labor of love. I mean,
Very much so.
every shot, everything there was just, you could tell the people making it loved Star Trek and wanted to make it I mean, I would say it is Star Trek. It feels like I'm watching the show. These are episodes we didn't get to see.
That is the greatest compliment we could ever receive, because that's all we ever set out to do.
Right.
And in answer to one of your questions about how did you make it, what grain or filter did you use and stuff you said.
Right. Yeah.
We shot the series on a Sony F3,
Mm-hmm.
which is a digital camera. Obviously, we shot at 24 frames a second to make it more film-like. But here's something that's really funny. It was too clear.
Right.
The original footage was too crisp.
That's what I'm saying. Sure. Yeah.
So one of the very, very last things that Matt Busey would do is he or James Kerwin, once I edited the episode, I would send them the video and I would send Ralph Miller the audio and the music, and we would mix the sound together, Ralph and I, and I would send that finished picture edit to Matt Busey, and then Matt and I would sit down on a conference call just like this, and we would do what's called color grade the episode, which means you tweak the values.
Right.
You make the blacks blacker,
Mm-hmm.
or you make the whites whiter, or you make the mid-ranges a little darker, or you increase the saturation,
Right.
color saturation, which was big in Star Trek.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you would crop it to 4:3,
Oh,
which was the classic series.
yes.
Even though our originals we shot in 16:9,
Right. Sure.
we always knew that we would eventually crop them to 4:3. And the very, very last thing that would happen would be that Matt or James would put a film filter over the finished episode to add film grain to it. And then they would even blur it and then resharpen it a little bit,
Right.
to help
That's
make
great.
it look like it ended up looking. So tons of subtle little things to try to make it feel like the series was never canceled.
Right. That's fantastic. And I actually get 85% of that, because back in the day, I'm going to age myself, I was an avid editor.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, I was a certified avid editor. And
Wow.
So that's very, very cool. Was there a lot of your episodes were callbacks, or not a lot, but you did callback periodically. Was there a callback to a previous episode you didn't get to do? Was that Kickstarter film of a call to action? Okay.
Piece of the action.
Piece of the action. Yeah, piece of the action.
Yes, when we did that Kickstarter, I thought, damn, we look good.
Oh.
I mean, to quote Ron Burgundy, to quote Anchorman, when I saw the pictures and the video, I'm like, Todd and I and the others that were at the shoot, I'm like, this stuff looks great.
Yeah.
Like, we found this place. Let me tell you something, you guys. You can't find many red brick turn of the century New York City looking things in Los Angeles, California.
No, I don't imagine.
We found a studio there called Lacey Street that had this back alley that looked like a New York tenement building back alley. And I found a guy that had a car, and it just turned out to be the same color and very close to the same style. And that was an episode that all you big Star Trek nerds remember very clearly was left very open-ended.
Yes.
McCoy accidentally left his communicator there.
Yeah. And astonishingly,
they theorized about,
has done that.
Yeah, they theorized about, what if someday the Iosians demand a piece of our action?
Yeah.
So that was one that I wanted to do.
Mm-hmm.
I even had a working title for it. It was going to be called The Federation's Cut. And we never got to do it, but yes. And, wrote a lot of really great stories too.
Mm-hmm.
You were mentioning about the details. You mentioned the attention to details, costumes and lightings and props and music and stuff. But to me, anybody can go to Lowe's and buy lumber and build a set.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody can get a sewing machine and make a uniform. What made Star Trek was the storytelling.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing like it. And in many cases, there has not been a lot like it since.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, one of the things I would dare say is missing from a lot of more recent Star Trek
Mm-hmm.
is that moral center,
Mm-hmm.
that ethical foundation where you craft an imaginative story in space or on another planet, but you're really telling a story about a social issue or a moral question or an ethical dilemma. That was what Star Trek did so well. And it had nothing to do with budgets or special effects or costumes or lighting or props or makeup or music. It was all about the writing. That's why Gene Roddenberry tasked some of the most famous sci-fi authors of his day to write stories for Star Trek. Compelling, thought-provoking, intelligent stories.
Mm-hmm.
And when we started Star Trek Continues, my goal from the very beginning was we are not going to make the average Captain Kirk beam down to the planet. He fights the Klingons. He shoots a phaser. He flips open the communicator.
Right.
No. We're going to bring in actors.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to tell thought-provoking stories with a message, a theme, a point to make.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am so proud of everybody that wrote stories and scripts for Star Trek Continues, because you guys, the laptop that I am talking to you on right now has a folder in it with probably 100 scripts.
Oh, wow.
That people sent me.
Right.
And after about 3 paragraphs into the script, I'm like, what's it about?
Right.
Like, what's the point? What's the message? And I passed up a lot of people who were very enthusiastic because, in my opinion, story is everything.
Agreed.
Right.
You could have great uniforms, and if you have a lame story, you're going to lose your audience.
It's very true.
You could have perfect sets and great uniforms. And if you have even a decent story and bad actors, you're going to lose your audience's interest.
Yes.
Story
and
I've storytelling is the most important thing of all.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen something where, you know what, the story and the script, the sets, everything, looks great, but nobody's selling it. It's so when you go and look at an episode like I'm going to make sure I get the title right because I'm terrible with titles sometimes. Come Not Between the Dragons,
episode 6,
which is one of my favorite episodes. I love that episode, but boy, does Gigi sell that.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I mean,
and let me tell you something about Gigi.
Yeah.
She is an amazing actress.
Mm-hmm.
And when I approached her about playing this role, and I told her what the theme of the story was, she was noticeably moved.
Mm-hmm.
And we found out either right before we started shooting or as we were shooting that Gigi had some history in her own life that made this very personal to her,
Right.
and that she tapped in to that emotion. And I mean, she brought it.
Yeah.
She brought it. I don't think she'll mind me telling you this because I love her to death. She's one of my favorite people on the planet. One of the first scenes we shot, you always shoot out of sequence, right?
Right. Yeah.
Sometimes you may shoot the last scene first.
Yeah.
So as an actor, you have to keep it in your mind. Where am I emotionally right now?
Right.
Like, what has happened before? What is still about to happen? So you find your emotional, center.
Yeah.
The first scene we shot with Gigi was on the bridge when she walks out and Chekhov says, "Do we even know it is his parent?" And Gigi walks out of the turbo lift behind my shoulder and says, "It is. It's his father."
Right. Right.
You guys ready for this?
Yeah.
I'm sitting in the captain's chair. Camera's getting ready to roll. Gigi's in the turbo lift getting ready to shoot this scene. Quiet, everyone! Stand by! And everyone gets quiet, and you can hear her crying.
Yeah.
In the turbo lift before the doors even open. We weren't even rolling yet. And when she came out, I mean, she was.
Yeah.
And my first thought was, she's fucking awesome. You know, my first thought was, she's going to be amazing. This episode's going to be amazing. But my second thought, as the exec producer, was, we need to dial this back because there's nowhere to go from there.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying? Like, if she's already at an 11 and we're at the 3/4 mark in the episode, where do you go from there? You know what I mean?
No, I get that. Totally.
So she did the scene and everybody was just like,
yeah.
I got out of the chair. I got out of the chair when we said cut. I got out of the chair and I walked up there and I put my arm around her shoulder. I'm like, that was absolutely amazing. Let's take one more and let's pull it back a little bit. Just hold it in a little bit more. And she's a pro. She got it and she nailed it. But my point of this story is she's such an amazing actress and she was so personally invested that she completely made that episode. And I should say also, Greg Dykstra was the guy that wrote that story and script, and he is a professional sculptor, character sculptor, and he also sculpted Usti.
Oh, wow.
He created the creature, and he wrote the story based on his own personal experiences when he was young. So that perfectly illustrates the kind of people that God brought to our production. You know what I mean? The kind of people that brought so much more to the equation than just, yeah, I'll make a creature, or yeah, I'll play a character, or yeah, I'll light your sets. You know what I mean? Everybody was so much more invested than that. And I think it shows.
And that is part one of our interview with Vic. We have two more parts, but we are over the hour, and we're going to save those two for next week. So please come back and join us next week to hear more from Vic. We get into all kinds of interesting details about the show, about things that they did, things they wanted to do, and then Vic talks to us about what he's doing now. Which is really, really exciting and a lot of fun. I don't know. Do you have anything to say towards the end here, Leo? Because I'm going to wrap this up.
No, other than it was a real treat to talk to him. And he clearly is still passionate about this, you know, even now, it having been a number of years since they wrapped. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That he's still, it is gratifying to see how passionate he still is about it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still very,
I agree.
very fresh for him. It lives with him, in a way in a positive way, I would say. So another tick in the box for Star Trek being a positive influence on people. So.
Oh, I agree.
But yeah, it was, and honestly, he was Mindy Peterson.
Thank you, Mindy. She says she's looking forward to next week.
Thank you.
And that is great.
He is a remarkably easy person to interview in that he has a wealth of stories at the ready. They're all locked and loaded. So all it took was just asking him a question.
Yeah, I spoke with Vic a few years ago, and the first thing that struck me, I was working for a university at the time, and we had a speaker series, and we were trying to come up with special guests to come in and speak to our students. And I was talking at the time to Vic about, coming in, talking to our communication students about what it took to make the show. And we must have talked for an hour on the phone. And, it's no secret that, we have a group of friends that all love Star Trek and have all known each other most of our lives. And we love to talk about it, which is hence why this show is here. And the first time I spoke with Vic, I felt like I was talking to you or one of my other dear friends. It was really just, he's such an open, engaging person. And it was really, really neat. So we were delighted to have him as a guest on the show. Any business we have to take care of, Leo, before we get out of here?
The only thing I would say is please, as always, follow us on Facebook at Trek Tonight, Twitter at Trek Tonight, and subscribe and like to us on YouTube, also Trek Tonight. And if you have any questions you want to contact us directly, please email us at trektonight2022@gmail.com.
And we will read your emails on the air next week.
Yeah, we will. If you send us a question, and Star Trek related, preferably. Although if you need advice about something, and you think either one of us has any insight into something serious, we'll happily give you our advice.
Exactly,
which will be worth exactly what it cost you, which is nothing.
Because I'm listening.
A
little Fraser Crane thing. Hey, also too, we do have a Patreon, and that is listed on our Facebook page. If anybody loves what they've seen and they would like to throw a little coin our way to help us keep going, but that is very appreciated. And I guess until next week, we will see you then.
Sounds good.
Have a wonderful week, everybody. Live long and prosper.
All right.